Lightning Blast is last Epoch take on Arc Lightning. It's a skill I have been min-maxing throughout the past 2 weeks. I wanted to make a high-end version of it that should be able to push beyond 500 corruption with ease. Not only I managed to do it, but all gameplay showcased in this video is close to 600 corruption. This build was made in Circle of Fortune, which means that no trading took place whatsoever. The build destroys all Harbingers including Aberroth, but sadly not Uber Aberroth. The damage is there, but we lack some defense for that. It's technically possible, but very difficult. Alright, let's not waste time and get started with our mastery. We are a sorcerer. You will get access to Lightning Blast from as early as level 1 by choosing to start as a mage. Lightning Blast is an excellent league starter, but that's another topic for another video. Anyway, here we have our mastery. We are not going to go over every single node, but we will cover all the important stuff. First, for the mage tree, we are going to put full points into Arcanist for its bonuses to intelligence. We are also going to put 5 points into Warden for its ward retention. Other than that, there isn't much going on here. For our main sorcerer tree, we immediately rush putting as many points as possible into Calculated Destruction. 5 points into this enable crit chance scaling with intelligence, making it the best damage scaling node in the entire game. Next, we have full investment into Arcane Momentum for increased cast speed. This is further improved with Essence of Celerity, which grants us increased spell damage with momentum stacks. Anyway, next we have 5 points into Crackling Precision for increased crit chance. This is followed with Arcane Obliteration for additional spell crit multi. We also have 8 points in Arcane Insight for its bonuses to intelligence and its massive ward decay threshold with intelligence. Finally, the most important node is Recollection for its 25% increased cooldown recovery speed. Next, we put few points into the Rune Master tree. We got Arcane Focus for its bonuses to intelligence and ward gain per spellcast. We also have Mental Catalysis for even more intelligence and reduced damage taken from crits. And we have Inscribed Instruments for its added crit multi bonus while wielding a wand. Finally, we put 5 points into Spellblade Arcane Warden node for its bonuses to intelligence and ward decay threshold per intelligence. Anyway, that was it for our mastery. Now let's take a look at our items. First, we are using a legendary Mad Alchemist Ladle with tier 7 cast speed and as many other damage modifiers as you can have as implicits. The wand itself grants 1% increased cast speed per 2 intelligence and causes enemies to take 6% more spell damage per negative element on them up to 48%. This bonus is capped at 8 negative element types. We are inflicting exactly 8 in this build. We got 5 on the wand, plus Chill, Shock, and Lightning Resistance Shred, thanks to our blessings, which we will cover later. This wand is best in slot and pretty easy to farm at even 3 legendary potential by running the Rune Prison Complex and then Farsight Turtle Woven Echoes. Anyway, next we have Exsanguinous. This chest is pretty straightforward. You sacrifice life to gain ward the second based on your missing life. You want to get tier 7 intelligence on this as an implicit. And if you got higher legendary potential, then go for percent life and additional crit multi with lightning skills. Both are optional. Next on the list we have a legendary Fragment of the Enigma with increased cast speed and crit multiplier implicits on it. This item adds flat lightning damage to our spark charges with intelligence. It also greatly increases their explosion area of effect, which allows us to instantly clear large packs of enemies. We do inflict spark charges thanks to our Lightning Blast tree, which we will talk about in a second. Anyway, our next item is Stormcarved Testament with tier 7 intelligence and crit multi implicits. While this relic was not designed for our build specifically, the mods on it are simply too good to pass out on. The lightning penetration and added lightning damage to spells are great. The shock chance is also perfect, since we have no other sources of inflicting shock in this build. We also needed the flat mana to go above the 300 threshold, enabling us to use some powerful idol mods. Our next item is Prismatic Gaze Legendary Helmet with tier 7 intelligence and plus 2 levels of Lightning Blast implicits. This helm is best in slot due to its bonuses to base crit chance. Not gonna lie, it's not going to be easy to get this at 2 legendary potential due to its drop weight, but it shouldn't be too hard due to the help of some Woven Echoes crafting benches. Anyway, our last legendary item in this build is Nihilist Amulet. This one drops from Aberroth. Thankfully not the Uber version. You can just continually farm the guy until you get one to drop with plus 2 to level of all skills. This is very good, and the Frenzy on Evade is also great for gaining additional cast speed after we dodge something. It will be difficult to get any number of legendary potential on this thing, but if you can get at least one potential, then go for tier 7 life or any damage mod that you like. Alright, now how can we get more ward? Simple. The experimental ward gain per missing health on gloves mod can be target farmed by continuously running the rune prison complex woven echo. You want the mod to drop on any gloves alongside any other tier 7 mod on the same item. Then use the newly added Rune of Havoc to swap the tiers between these two mods until you get tier 7 ward per missing health mod on the gloves. It's actually easy to make. The issue is having the rest of the mods be useful on the item. Generally speaking, you want to have at least tier 5 int crafted on the gloves alongside the ward mod to call this a successful craft. Anyway, next for our boots, we have generic boots with intelligence, movement speed, cooldown recovery, and resistance mod. Be on the lookout for boots dropped from Nemesis encounters, as these can be very good with multiple exalted mods. Now for our belt, here we have the unique champion mod that grants lightning blast chance to chain additional times, that alongside lots of spell damage. This isn't an uncommon mod, though you will be having to hunt lots of champions to get it to drop on a decent build. Alongside this mod, you want lightning damage and increased cooldown recovery speed. Now last but not least for our rings, I'm using 2 ivory rings for their bonuses to ward and necrotic resistance. On them I have exalted intelligence roll. I have also a spell damage and crafted ward with resistance roll. Now ideally you want opal rings for their increased cooldown recovery speed, but these are hard to get with decent mods. Now for idols, we are abusing the large idol mod that doubles its effectiveness if you have at least 300 mana. It grants us up to 80% increased lightning damage on its own, and I have enchanted my large idols to have flat spell damage on them as well. I'm using multiple copies of this exact idol. Finally, I have filled the small idol slots with small weaver idols that have lots of ward on them. That alongside either resistances or life depending on what you need. But with that we are done with our items. Now let's get over our skills and their tree. First for lightning blast, you should have the skill setting at around level 25, assuming you got all the items that I recommended. Here we have fully invested into front loaded for double damage against single targets. We also have some points into Stormraiser, just 2 since we are already crit capped like this. Next and most importantly, we have Cloud Answer for 30% chance to apply spark charges on lightning blast hits. Spark charges have their own independent damage, which we scaled by stacking intelligence and by putting points into Mortal Capacitor node, which triples their damage. Anyway, next we have Flame Ward. It's important that we put 5 points into Barrier for additional global damage reduction. Also 3 points into Prismatic Barrier for even more protection against elemental damage. Our next skill is Arcane Ascendance, generally one of the reasons why I went with Sorcerer. Here we went for Superconductor. This node continuously casts Lightning Blast separately while the skill is active. It does use its tree, so these triggers deal full damage. Make sure to follow this node with Closed Circuit to increase the trigger frequency of Lightning Blast. Anyway, next we took Chronoclasm to apply 8% more damage to enemies per stack of slow on them, and Acuity to remove the skill active mana cost, but limits the usability of the skill for a couple of casts. Finally, we have Power Sprint, which grants us haste buff after Arcane Ascendance end equals to double its duration. Our next skill is Static. Here we took Overload. Similar to that one node in the Arcane Ascendance tree, this one also triggers Lightning Blast once every second. We follow this with Diode to grant these Lightning Blast triggers additional chains and damage. Finally, we have taken Power Surge to grant Static a lot of flat damage equal to the number of charges you have, perfect for finishing off bosses and champions. Last but not least, we have Teleport. Here we took Stable Bubble for additional ward retention buff whenever we use a skill. We follow this up with Time Dilation for increased buff duration. Next, we allocated some of the decoy shenanigans. With both decoy nodes allocated, you create mirror images in both the place you are teleporting to and the one you departed from. This does confuse bosses if you maintain enough distance to them. Finally, we have Comet Rush. Not only this node reduces teleport cooldown, but it also refreshes the duration of haste buff if you have it, after you cast teleport. We use this after applying Arcane Ascendance buff to us, which means that we get to permanently extend the haste buff forever as long as we keep teleporting. But with that we are done with our skills. Now let's go over our Monolith blessings. While generally I would leave these for you guys to decide, there are few that are mandatory which we are gonna go over right now. First we have Grand Emptiness of Ash for additional crit multi. We are 100% crit capped, so it only makes sense to take this one. Next we have Grand Body of Obsidian for additional armor. We also have Grand Heart of Ice for a chance to chill enemies on hit. And finally we have Grand Masteries of the Deep for shredding enemies' lightning resistance, which is a lot of damage. But with that, we are done with our best lightning blast build for last epoch. If you guys have enjoyed this video, then feel free to leave a like and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any future build guide like this one. My name is Phoenix and I will see you all in the next video.
We were denied. The terror turned her back on us. Embrace oblivion. The void comes. The gods tore our world apart. They deserve their fate. Treated the world no better. Death is our legacy. The void hungers. Oblivion. The world called to our abyss. This is his answer. The void hungers. Will not save you. You fight for nothing. The void comes. Worthless.